Hello, I'm Alistair and welcome to the Toolkit for Traders YouTube channel, where we give you the tools for trading success. On to today's video.
Hello and welcome to another video on the Toolkit for Traders YouTube channel. And in this video, we're going to be carrying on with our Zorro series, which I introduced in the last video. Go check that one out. And in the last video, I wanted to give you a bit of a taster of what the Zorro is capable of. What I showed you was really some of the most basic stuff you can do in Zorro. This engine is capable of a lot more, but I really just wanted to get to wet your whistle, as we say in England, give you a bit of a taster for what it can do, so I can keep you interested and you'll stay with me when we go into other things, because I really think Zorro, for me personally, is the best tool out there for algorithmic trading, across, especially when you're talking about doing it across multiple markets, including FX, options, stocks, indices. Zorro can do all of those, but crucially, what it does really well is the back testing and data analysis. It's capable of your standard strategies like candlestick patterns, which are built in. It's got a whole suite of indicators, a lot more than the standard MetaTrader's got. But it's also capable of some other things like fuzzy logic, machine learning, and all kinds of weird and wonderful things that can potentially give you an edge in the FX market if you give it a go. But what I wanted to do in today's video is, as we start to get into Zorro, I didn't want to keep having to sort of explain basic coding principles to everybody. So we're going to start this series off with a 30-minute lesson in coding. So if you've never coded before, hopefully you'll be able to keep up with it. If you just can't keep up with it at all, I do have a series of videos on the MQL4 language for MetaTrader 4, but most of the concepts in coding transfer over to this one. And if you watch those videos and learn to do it that way, you'll find this really easy, because this is actually a much simpler language to learn. And what you find with coding, if you're very new to coding, one, it's actually easier than maybe you've always thought, and two, once you know one language and you have the core concepts down, transferring to another language is very, very easy. There's lots of similarities. They use a lot of the same syntax. They use a lot of the same principles. You just really got to get used to the different kinds of quirks of each language. It's a bit like if you're a Spanish speaker and then you go to Italy, you can understand pretty much most of what Italians are saying. It just takes you a little time to get used to it, because the languages are so closely related. And that's the same with most coding languages. MQL4 is very close to this c-lite, which is used by Zorro. So if you're not sure and you can't keep up, please go back to go to my MQL4 where I go through it in depth, and if hopefully I give you enough to do here. If you would really like me to go through coding in c-lite, or potentially you want to see me do a totally different non-trading coding lessons where I can do Python, Java, C#, anything like that, just let me know in the comments, and maybe I can put that into the program, because I can write in multiple languages, all self-taught, and I've done lots of things over my time, make games, make apps and that kind of thing. So if you'd like to see anything like that in the content, not got that in the plan yet, but just let me know. But we're just going to hit today's video with a 30-minute lesson, and we've already cut into 4 minutes, a 30-minute lesson on how to code. So we've got here a blank text file, and there's nothing really to this. It's just a text file. I mean, you could do the same in your normal Notepad, but I'm using Notepad++ because the Notepad++ that comes with Zorro will help you It will give you some pointers. It will change the colors to make your coding time a bit easier, a bit more intuitive. You can do this in Notepad or in any other text editor, and you can do it in more complex ones like Visual Studio Code or something like that, of course, but you don't have to. So we're starting with Notepad++, and we're going to save. I've clicked a new file, and I'm going to click Save As, and I'm putting it in that folder here, and I'm just going to call this, let's just call this Coding Lesson 1, and I'm using the underscore here because Zorro doesn't like spaces in the file name, so you might come across that if you store your Zorro in program files. It will cause an issue, so you have to save your Zorro, the actual Zorro executable file somewhere else. But for this, I'm calling this Coding Lesson 1. It's a C source file, so it's going to be .c. And Notepad++ works for lots of things. Works for Python. I've used it for Python before and lots of things. It's a really, really good program. All free, open source, so can't go wrong with that. So the first thing to say, so we've got this file here, and we're going to write a script. So a script is a file. It's a set of instructions for the software to follow. So in the same way that a script in TV or film is a set of instructions for the actors and actresses to follow, a script here is something that we're going to get the Zorro to follow. So we're going to start here. We're going to start with a comment, and we use the two forward slashes there to start a comment, and we're just going to say this Coding Lesson 1. And this is purely, and the comment thing here is just pure text, and this is purely for the coder, for the human reading and coding in this. Maybe you want to share this with other people. None of anything in this sort of blue after these 2 marks, none of that's going to be executed by the computer. The computer will just ignore this line because you put the 2 forward slashes there. So it's just to help us understand what's going on, and we're just using this as a title for that basis. And you can do things like this where you put a series of slashes, again just to break it up and make it easier for the coder, the people to read. It has no function at all. For the computer, it will just ignore those blue lines. And then we're going to create a function here, and I'll explain a bit more about functions later, so don't worry too much about that. But we're going to start with a function called main, and the main function is called once when the program starts in Zorro. So you don't need to worry about that too much. It's just going to get called once. That's the important thing. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is variables and what variables are. So variables are like boxes, and this is something I explained in my previous videos, but boxes that you put things in. So you can put so we're going to say we want to store a number, we want to store a piece of text to use later down the line, in the same way as algebra, where a letter or a letter represents a value. We can use variables to do that. The first thing we have to do to make a variable, to make our box, is we have to tell the program what we're going to put in the box. That's the most important thing about it. So there's a different kinds of variables you can do. You can do a var, which is one of the most common ones used in Zorro, and it's simply what you need to know is it's a number with a decimal place, and we can do, say, var, and then so after you've said what type a variable it's going to be, you then need to name it. So in this case we're going to call it A. Very, very simple, and we're going to say A is 1. So what we've done here is we've said what type, and I'll put this in the comments. So we've got type of variable, type of box, we've got a name, and we've set a value using the equal sign, and we've set it to 1. So that's the basics of what that line means. You could also use different ones. You may see something called a bool, and that's really short for short for Boolean, who was a mathematician, closely associated with logic. And booleans only can have two values. Booleans can be, so here we could say, we could name this is true as our. So we've called it is true, and we can set that to two values. We can set it to, if I can spell it right, true, or we can set it to, let's see, word like this. We can set it to false. Now, you don't tend to use this very much at all, so we won't go there. But the other one, there's a couple of others I'll tell you about. There's string, and that typically is text. So we string Alistair, that's me, and you see it goes green, which is good. And the other type you'll see sometimes is int, and int typically what int is an integer, so it's a whole number. So in fact we'll do int. We'll leave them on here just so we know it's in the file, you can refer to it. So whole number, no decimal places. We have a string name equals my name, and again we'll say that string is a way to store text, and we have a bool, which there are more than this, is true. There are more than this, but you don't see much more than this, and you won't really need to use them or the other ones. So don't worry too much about the other ones. You're welcome to look those up if you think they're necessary. So the last one, as I say, is the bool, and that's set like this. You can also set it as 1 for true and 0 for false, but it's always better to write things as you would understand them. So boolean for true or false. So there we have all the types. But what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to change this one. Let's just call that X for now, and we'll drop these down. In fact, what we'll do, we'll cut them out there. We'll put them above, and we'll put a space here for this var because we'll use this var A in a moment. But what we have, just a couple of things I want you to see in the way it's coded. So you can see we got the type of variable, the name that we've given the variable, and that can be anything you like. Pretty much text. It's good to give variables readable names that you understand, like is true is a good example of that, or name. It tells you what that variable is. You then set that variable. You don't have to set the variable. You could just leave this part out to leave it as a blank variable, but in this case we've set it to 1. And then we always end the line with a semicolon, and you can see that's the same here, here, here. And if you don't do this, if you forget to do this, what you'll get is a syntax error when you load up Zorro on the next line. So it might be confusing. We'll see line 11 or something like that. There's an error because it will be running this line all the way to the next one, and it just won't make sense to the compiler, to the computer. So you need to remember to do that. The only exception when you don't use semicolons, say when you declare a function, as you've got here, and you've used the brackets instead. And if you use a logic statement like if or use a loop like while, you'll use these brackets and you won't be using those. But pretty much all your lines have to end with a semicolon. It's a pretty easy mistake to make not to do that, so do look out for that when you are coding. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of a test here. So simple calculation. We're going to create two variables called A and B. And this one's going to be we're going to be set to 2, and then we're going to do a little calculation. So we're going to say that C, and we're going to declare C first. We have to declare it var C. We're not going to set C's value, so we're going to leave it as that. And then we're going to set C's values on the next line, and what we're going to do is we're going to say C equals A plus B, and a semicolon. And so what we've got is a simple equation, if you like, that C is A plus B, and we can remember that the plus sign here is called an operator. So that's the plus sign is called an operator. You've got such as, so we'll put them here. You've got plus, minus, divide, and multiply. They're the typical operators you can use. You've also got squared as well, but we'll just leave that like that for now. And operators, you can look up operators in the manual, and you'll be able to find the different operators you can use. So what we want to do is it will calculate C, but we won't know what C is unless we get some kind of output from the program about what C is. So we need some way for the program to tell us what C is. So we're going to use a built-in function called printf. Don't worry too much about what that is, but it's a way to put something into the Zorro console. And we're going to say is equals, and so this line, don't worry too much, we can come on to this at another time, but we're just using this simple function here, and it's going to print this example C. So it's going to type the words out here, and this is a string, you can see, because we've got the two speech marks as we use for this string here. It's going to say result equals, and the %.f is just a way of notifying that we're going to put in a float here, and that float is going to be C. It's just a very neat way of writing something like that you could do it by consonanting the two strings together and converting that to a string, but this works very well. So what we're going to do is we're going to click save, and we're going to get our Zorro console. We're going to change the folder, put it in here, coding lesson 1, there we go, open that, and we're going to click test. And you can see what we've got here is where we got result equals there, result equals 3, so 1 add 2 is 3, so it's substituted, instead of this %.f, it's substituted the value of C here in there, and then this print function has put it into this console. So you can see here it's compiled that. When you click test, the way Zorro works is a lot of things, when you click save, you compile them afterwards, and this compiles it just before you run it. So it's compiled okay, and it's printed 3. So very simple, not very useful, but a very simple script there for lesson 1. So we're going to go on to lesson 2 now. I'm going to click new here again. I'm going to click file, save as, and instead of 1, I'm just going to change that to 2. I'm just going to do something a little different. So we've got now, we're looking at, we're going to look at functions. So the next thing you want to learn, so that this one was really around variables and what variables are. It's a way to store values within your code. And in this one, we're going to look at functions. So we used functions here. We made a function there, and we used a built-in function there. But what is a function now? A functions is a set of code that can be reused. So rather than having to repeat the code over and over again, you can simply write down the name of the function, and that will execute all the code within it. So for instance, we're going to start with we're going to create a function. Let's create a function. So we're going to create a function. It's going to be, let's start with this, coding lesson 2, just so we know what we're doing. We can just say functions, and we'll put a nice break in there so it's nice and easy to read, and drop down these lines, and we'll create another function, and this function is going to calculate how many days old I am. So and you could do this yourself for your age, but let's say let's call a function, and we'll call it calculate days, and we're going days spelled wrong. And so we've said that we've declared, a bit like when we say we're going to declare a variable, if you see in this lesson, we said the type. So in effect, we're saying the type here is actually a function. We're not creating a variable, we're creating a function. This is the name. So again, we went variable type, the name, and we've gone function type. then we've got the name, and then we use the brackets then just to say what the bit of code does. So the brackets really just say where the start and the end of the function is. So it will start at the top and run to the bottom to where this the second curly bracket is. So I like to when I code, you could say do that and start coding below, but then it's very easy to forget the second pair of curly braces. So I like to put that there first and then come inside and just indent here. That doesn't really serve any purpose, but it helps to see that once I've indented, I either use the tab or you can use spaces. Use the tab to indent, and it just shows you that all the code here is underneath is a child of this function. So I'm going to create a variable, and it's going to be a number. So I'm going to call it a var, and I'm going to call this variable my age. And I am 32, so there you go, some information about me. I shouldn't put on the internet, but here we go. And we're going to create another variable, which is days per year. And if you know the calendar, you'll know that's 365 and a quarter. So 0.25 on the end there. And we're going to then create a variable, which is number of days. And we're going to say here, we're going to say number of, I need to, you can't have spaces in the name, so that's a bit of an error from me. Number of days there, that'll do with the underscores, you can do it like that. Or commonly you'll see something called camel case. So the first letter of the new word in there starts with a capital. I'm going to say that is equal to my age. And you can see there the variable I've done. We're going to multiply, so that's the operator for times is the star, which is shift 8 on most keyboards, and we're going to use our days per year variable that we've created. We'll put that, and then we will use the printf function again, and we're going to open a string. I am, and we'll use the neat little operator that we used before to substitute in a number, days old, and we will then tell what number we want to put in there, which is number of days, and we'll close that. So if we click save on that and we open up Zorro once again, if you click test, I need to change the lesson, and click test, and we've got a syntax error in line 11. So, I put a star in there, who knows why. There we go, let's try that one again. No main function to run. So what it's saying here is it's got no main function to run. So we've created this function, but it won't, nothing will call this function to run it because you need a main function or a run function. So in this one here, we put everything inside the main function. So what we'll do now is underneath where we've done this, we'll go function main, and we'll create this function again, similar to what we did before. And here simply what we'll do is we'll call it calculate days, put the semicolon there, click save, and let's try it this time. And I didn't know this, but I'm 11,688 days old. So there you go. What we've done here is we've created a function which is a set of code that can be called simply by calling its name. So it saves you having to repeat that, because I don't know why you would, but we could call this twice, let's say, and we click save here and call it Zorro, and then click test here, and you see it will do it twice. You see it's done it once, then it's done it once there. So but that's 2 lines rather than having to repeat all of this again. The other thing you can do here in, let's say we didn't want to set this variable my age. We wanted to create a more dynamic function that can respond to different inputs. So for instance, we're gonna say age here, and we're gonna say var equals age. So what we've done is we've set a parameter, an input into this function, and then once the function runs, it's going to use that input and set the my age. What that means is when we call it, we have to put that input in there, and we can say put in 32 as our input. So we click save on there, and we should get the same output. And we get exactly the same output, but the thing, this is dynamic. So if you're 25, if you're a young would-be coder, you'll get a different output, you see. So rather than hard coding that in, you can use that function, can have different inputs, and you can give multiple functions in there. The other thing you can do here is we could take the output out here just to show you for demonstration purposes. And what we can say is that actually what we want here is we're going to set a variable, and we're going to call this variable number, we're going to call it no days, let's say, and it's going to equal the calculate days. And you say, well, what does that really mean? So let's just say this no days. Well, what we can get this function to do is, rather than this function just doing a calculation and printing, we can say tell me what the days are there and return it, and then I'm going to store it in this variable. So we're going to say function, and we're going to say return, and we're going to say no days, and we need to tell this function that we're going to return a variable. Click save and test. And I've done something wrong there. 2 seconds, hold the line. So we can, when you do this, you can actually take the function out, and we're telling it, so what we're saying here is we're saying we're going to return a var, and what we should also do is declare what age is going to be, so we control that. What we're saying is we're going to return a var, so we put the var at the start instead of the word function, and that says to the computer, hey, when this function is going to return, it's going to give back a var type variable, which is the return number of days, which lines up with the var number of days here. So, and we need to set it as the one in there. Hopefully you're still following along at this point. And you can see here, it works in exactly the same way as before. And you know, coding can be quite creative. You can do it in different ways. So what we did is we created a variable of var type, number of days we called it, and then we set that value to the return value of this function. And if we change that to 50, if you're getting to this at 50, good on you, and you are 18,000 days old, just over. And you can see, so we can set that variable different types. We can use an inbuilt function here to print that out, and that works really well. So, and how much time have we got left? We've got a couple minutes left, so I'm gonna go over this time, but I really wanted to get the basics of coding done with you, so that I don't have to talk about it too much in the next videos. We're going to do this one's lesson 3, and we're going to call this one about loops. So another key thing that you'll need to know is loops, which are fairly self-explanatory, and also branches as well. So we have we're going to go straight into the main function again. So we're not returning anything here, so we'll just use the word function. Main, we've called once, and we're going to say var, and it's called my profit, and is equal to, and we're going to use here the slider. I'm going to show you how to do that, which is part of the console of Zorro here, slider 1. So we're going to do. If you open it, you'll see what you got. You got a slider number, we've got the position 50, the min, the max, and the string name. We're going to call it profit, and we're going to set the tooltip to 0, Don't worry about that too much for now. That's false. And we're going to say if, and we're going to use an if statement. So if statements are really questions that the code can ask. So what we can do here is we can say if my profit, if it's greater than, so here's another operator. So if this side, you can see the open mouth of the crocodile is bigger on this side. So if this side is greater than this side, which is we're going to set to 100, we're going to go here and we can set the value. So we're going to print F again, and we're going to say enough money, and which is nice. And then we're going to say we're going to do something else. So if that, you know, so what that would do is it's going to evaluate here if my profit, that value which is derived from the slider, if that value is more than 100, and if that is more than 100, this whole thing will come out as true. Will evaluate as true if my profit is above 100. Now, if it is not above 100, it will not execute this bit of code, so it will not say enough money. But what you can also do is you can tell it to do something different as well if that is not true. So we can use the else. So if else, so if it's true, do this, else do this. So we've got two brackets and they can go on a separate line like that, or you can, I like to put them like that with an else function, so it looks a bit neater. We're indent in, and we're going to do another printf, and we're going to say not enough money. Right, and that's important to us. So we can save that, and we go to Zorro, change to lesson 3 and click test. And what you can see is it's not enough money. You see this line is our profit, which is that name there, profit. We're at 50, and you can see that's 50 is less than 100, so it's saying not enough money. So we can move this to be 106, and it's enough money, and we go all the way up to 200, and it's enough money. I'll go down to 0, and it's not enough money, and we go to 99, 98, not enough money. And in fact, if we go to 100, I can set this in here, it will say not enough money, because more than, so it has to be more than, it's not more than or equal to, you set that differently, it's more than. So that's the very basics of an if statement. If this is true, do that, else do that, which is, you know, really, really useful for saying if you know, my trade conditions are met, enter long. If they're not met, enter short, is a classic way of using an if statement in trading code. The other thing we're going to cover off here is a while loop, which is really, really useful, and is the last thing we're going to cover today. So we're going to keep that there, and we're going to quickly open up a new one. And we're I'm just gonna copy the whole thing here and make some changes here. So we'll save this one as lesson 4. .c, save that, and this is actually loops. That is should be if statements there. So all these files will be on the Toolkit for Traders website. If you go there, it's all absolutely free. We'll keep that main function there, and we're going to use this loop. We're going to show you what a loop is. Okay, so a loop is similar. It's related to an if statement, but it works different. And I'll show you how. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a integer, which is a whole number, and we're going to give it n for number, and we're going to start at 0. So it's going to start at 0, and we're going to say while. So it's all written sort of in English. While n is less than, so different than the other one, less than 10, we're going to do something. So what this will do is it will evaluate whether it's sort of like a if statement, how they're related. If n is less than 10, execute the code in the brackets. Now, n at the moment will always be less than 10, so this will go over this code down here, and it will loop back to the top, and it will just go that round and around and around to infinity. So what we need to do is make sure that n gets bigger, otherwise we will crash our computer and never get out of it. So we make n1, so every time this loop goes through, n is going to get bigger by 1. So we're going to set that to there, and what we're going to do is we're going to print f again, and we're going to say n is, we're going to use that percent sign again, percent I, and then we're going to say what we want and drop there. We'll click save here, and we're going to open up Zorro, and we'll click test on the correct lesson. And you can see it writes n is 1, n is 2. It's a bit confusing because there's no space between them. You can simply change that by dropping a space in there. Let's do that again, makes it a bit clearer. You see n is 1, n is 2, n is 3. So you can see what it's doing is it's doing this code, but instead of just doing it once, it's looping over it every single time. And every time we do that, we're going to make n bigger, so that will eventually, this here will become false. And once it becomes false, it will stop executing that code. So really, really useful thing, loops. We'll use loops to loop through our assets. So we've got different assets. We'll go through our Euro USD, GBP USD, NZD USD. We'll go through those in a while loop. So it's a really useful thing for coding. But they're the basic 4 concepts of coding in a little over half an hour, getting to more towards 40 minutes, I'm afraid, but there we go. I did my best. And if you want to learn more about this, if you simply type in the Zorro manual and you look for the coding, you can look for variables, functions, that kind of thing. It's all there. And actually, if you go to workshop 1 to 3, if you look for that and the Zorro manual, which I'll just show you what that looks like here. It goes through much of what I've been through today, which I've used the basis of that, and maybe explains that maybe better than I have. But also you can see in the Zorro manual, it's got variables and all the different kind of variables you can use. It's got functions, how they work, return functions. You've got different expressions, operators that you can use. You've also got if-else statements, while, do, for loops. There's loads more. Switch case, if you're familiar with that in other languages. There's loads of things you can do in Zorro, but I've given you the basics. This, in truth, is all you'll need really to get started with really some quite clever back testing. So these 4 lessons, if you're very, very new to coding, have a go at typing these out yourself. Do them from scratch. Do it side by side, if you like, with these. These 4 lessons will be on the Toolkit for Traders website. Get on there. It's all absolutely free. Download it and put it up side by side and type it all out yourself. Embed that knowledge, because that will really help with the future videos where we're going through Zorro and what Zorro has to offer. But that's all for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
So I hope you enjoyed this video. My aim is always to be informative, honest, and importantly, free. If you like the video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click on the bell icon next to it to be sure that you get notified when the next video is coming out. And if you do like the video, please smash the like button. It helps YouTube to know that this is a good video for traders, which in turn helps other aspiring traders find this channel and get the good content that's on here. But in any case, that's all from me. All the best, and I'll see you next time.